if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying your life experience, something's wrong. These like fundamental like beliefs that we'd had, like, you know, you work hard, company will take care of you, you'll have a nice house, you have plenty to provide for your family. You know, just go to college, just keep your head down, work hard. That's a lie. I guess it comes down to your values. Yeah, like, what do you want? Do you want to make a whole bunch of money? And are you willing to like sacrifice your health for that? There are companies they'll set that up for you. So what I would tell any manager that's working with a team, I would say, get to know your team professionally, personally, understand what their ambitions are, what skills do they want to develop, why am I here? Why am I in this organization? Why am I alive? Is it just to like show up and punch a clock? Or do I want to leave a mark in the hearts and minds of people that I work with?
Hi guys, this is Runner View with Kat. Ready to join me on this ride? Then let's go. But don't forget to hit that subscribe button to keep your face safe. Good morning, runner viewers. This morning we're running with Charles Newnam, who is a retired Navy officer, organizational development expert coach, and a strategy principal director with Accenture. Thanks for running with us this morning, Charles.
It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, having fun.
I think we have a lot to cover.
Yeah.
So let's dive in.
Okay.
I was reading some statistics, and according to the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, there are about 15 million of Americans, or roughly 15% of the US population, that have autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
And I know you happen to have one too. So how did you find out about it, and when did it happen?
Oh yeah. I guess it started like, I mean, how I guess contracted it. I mean, there's different opinions about how you actually get autoimmune diseases. But had an event on a submarine one day where I got into some really cold water, and I got hypothermia, lost a lot of blood circulation in my limbs, like feet and hands, and kind of the physical trauma combined with a lot of the mental stress I was under spawned 3 autoimmune diseases.
Jeez.
And so, yeah, really painful event, and you know, kind of almost like crippling pain. Like it hurt to even like hold a coffee pot or like open doors in my house. You know, just so much pain in my wrist, arms, as my joints were kind of under attack. And so that's how I found out about it. I mean, that process of like the pain and working with doctors, you know, and finally they made a diagnosis. So
what did they tell you?
So it's called mixed connective tissue disease, which is a blend of autoimmune diseases. And I have lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and something called scleroderma. So I have all 3 of those. And technically you never heal, but I haven't been to a doctor in probably 10 years maybe. So technically still have it, but I feel pretty good.
So, but it was impacting your
absolutely.
lifestyle.
It impacted my entire life, like
how?
Mentally. I mean, one, I couldn't move. Like it hurt to move. It just hurt to walk. I would lie in bed at night with just tears running out of my face because the pain would be so extreme. I'd say from a mental health perspective, just depressed. I mean, you know, am I going to die young? You know, what's the future look like? I had no idea. So it was really hard on all fronts, especially those first like 2 years, just really, really hard. So, yeah.
So what changes? I mean, clearly we're running now. You seem to have a T-shirt of somebody who finished something. So what changes did you have to, or did you make to your lifestyle to be here now?
Well, I think first I started, so, you know, the doctor at the time wanted me to go on a low dose of a chemotherapy drug for the rest of my life. And I just sort of intuitively knew that was not healthy. You know, like I'll probably die young just doing that. And I asked him, I said, can I try to change like my diet or any lifestyle factors before we go on this drug?
Okay.
And he said, you know, I'll give you 3 months, and then I'm going to strongly recommend you do this. So I used to be a really obese adolescent. And I had went through and read a lot about endocrinology and how hormones work in the body.
Okay.
And I went from 310 pounds as a 14-year-old to 185 pounds as a 17-year-old. And I'd done all that through reading about the body and how hormones work. And so I thought, maybe I can just dive back in and try to understand how my body works and why it's doing this. And so the first thing I did was approach like my diet. I did some elimination diets and like fasting. I seemed to alleviate some of the pain. And started feeling better. I started to know what foods would make me feel worse or trigger me.
Okay.
And then the rest of it was really like a mental and spiritual journey. And that's still unfolding. I'm still on that journey. But I think just getting rid of like the deep, like I had a lot of guilt and shame. And I think just some self-hatred for who I had become, or I thought I had become. And I think processing that and getting it through me is really the thing that like started my healing journey. So those are some of the things I did. And I'd say like lastly, like one thing that was kind of interesting is I used to be a big weightlifter.
Okay.
And of course I couldn't pick anything up with the diseases. And I'd never been a runner, never thought I'd be into endurance sports, but I started walking and riding a bike and it felt good. Like my body felt good just moving. So I just kept moving. And so I was like, I'll try to run one day. And so I just did. And I ran maybe 5 miles and it was exhausting, but my body felt good. And so I just kept doing that, you know, and then started doing like sprint triathlons and then all the way up to half Ironmans. And then now I'm an ultra marathon runner. So it's just, I just keep moving, and I think that's what's keeping me healthy and healed.
Because you've done an ultra this year, right?
Yeah, I did one a couple of weeks ago, actually. A 50K out in the mountains in Chattanooga. So it was brutal. It was 6,000 feet of elevation change. And having moved from Texas, I'm not really used to that type of elevation change.
That's awesome, though. Well, you clearly transformed your life.
Yeah.
Several times now.
Yeah.
I mean, you just mentioned your experience as a child or a teenager, right? Losing weight, then fighting the disease and really, I think, managing it.
Yeah.
But it seems like people are having trouble, or lots of people are struggling when it comes to changing their lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think are the key ingredients of success, or to make that change? What needs to happen for people to say, okay, like I got to do something about it and stick to it?
Yeah. I think the first thing is you got to believe you can change. If you don't believe you can change, you won't. Period.
Okay.
So it starts with the belief, and I think in today's society, at least my experience with myself and others, is that I think we think too much about the change. And so let's take running, for example. Someone's new to running, never run. They want to research everything, all the tech. What's the best shoes? What kind of gear should I have? Oh, I may be cold. I may need some cold weather gear. What's the best kind to have? All this stuff, but they're not running. And so it's like, just put on your shoes and go out the door. Like, don't think about it, just do it. So, and it can be super small or it can be big, but if you're wanting to change something in your life, whatever you can do that's even small, what can you do today that initiates that change, and just do it. So I think just doing that and then seeing what the response is. How does the world treat me when I've made this change? How do I feel when I've made this small action? If it feels good, do more of it. If it's taking you towards your goal, do more of it. And I'd say be smart, right? Like, I'm not telling people just to stop thinking altogether. But I think we get seduced by and intellectualize like the change rather than just doing the change. So that's probably one of the things that I would say I see pretty commonly.
Taking the first step.
Yeah, just getting the first step. Or like there's some literature in, I think it's Atomic Habits, where it's like, you know, if you want to start running, reward yourself for just putting your shoes next to the door in the morning, you know, like these tiny little steps, like what can you do? So I'm a big fan of that, you know, just doing that kind of stuff. So I think those are some of the things. I mean, we could get into like the unconscious and like why, you know, people say they want to do something but never get around to it. And that's worth exploring, you know.
From psychologists,
yeah. If you're unable to make even the smallest change and just do it, you know, what I think you have to go back and say, was this something I really want? Because I'm behaving as if it's not. And then you have to have an honest exploration and conversation with yourself about what that may be. So, and that can run all the way from, you know, I guess ancestral trauma to, you know, just you're not really jazzed up about doing whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah.
Well, you know a lot about psychology.
A little bit.
And you now work for Accenture, helping businesses and people.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about what you do there?
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, I work in organizational development, which is can run the gamut of like what that means. What I specialize in is really around organizational behavior. So culture change, culture programs, things like that. And then I also work a lot with like top teams, so team effectiveness. And I do a little bit of individual coaching as well. But I think about it as it's 3 levels. I kind of do the same work, which is really around behavior change. But I work at the individual, team, and organization level. So that's kind of what I do essentially. Okay,
so I'm curious to get your thoughts as an expert on some of the challenges and trends that we see in current workplace. So clearly in the last 5 years, a lot has changed. We had COVID that led to some isolation, changes in or movement towards hybrid, remote work. And so we see that there is this loneliness pandemic that is now more than just a personal and mental struggle. It's almost turning to a core business risk.
I agree.
So from your perspective, if this is becoming a risk to businesses, what do we need to do differently in the way we build our teams, lead each other?
You know, I may take it one step even above. I think humanity is in an existential crisis. I don't know if it's necessarily isolated to just businesses and companies. I think at least society in the West, I will say for sure, I think we've lost our way. I think we've lost our purpose. I think that these like fundamental like beliefs that we'd had, like you know, you work hard, company will take care of you, you'll have a nice house, you have plenty to provide for your family. You know, just go to college, just keep your head down, work hard. That's a lie. That is not how the world works today. But I think we're still kind of believing that. And
so we're not adapting.
Yeah, I think we've kind of lost the question of like why? Like why am I doing this? Why am I showing up from 8 to 5? Or if you're in other industries, maybe you're working, you know, 6 to 8 every day. You know, like people are giving away their lives. And I think they're asking themselves, I don't understand why. Like my money, the money I'm getting for this, I'm still struggling to make ends meet. You know, most households are 2-parent incomes. And I think I think we've lost our purpose. So in my opinion, I think if companies want to help with engagement, I think putting the time in to clearly articulate why you exist. And then I also think helping people connect their personal story to the story of the organization. I think that could be something as a way to, at least the first step to setting an environment where you might get a higher chance of engagement than like your peers or other companies.
So essentially, if I am looking for a job and looking for a company, right, and I have some background and maybe values and beliefs, what you're saying is if I have an interview with an employer who can maybe connect on that level, that's gonna help me out more?
Yeah, personally, so I guess it comes down to your values. Yeah, like, what do you want? Do you want to make a whole bunch of money? And are you willing to like sacrifice your health for that? There are companies they'll set that up for you. You know, you'll be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, do you want a company that's super purpose-led and like making a difference in the world? There's companies you can go do that. You can find that. You may even go to the nonprofit arena for that. I think it's just about what's important to me, and then going and finding a match with a group of people. I won't even say company, just a group of people that think and want the same things you do, and then go get it together. There's nothing wrong with wanting to get paid a lot of money and the other things that might have to go. And it's not a one-for-one. You can have good health, good quality of life, and still make a lot of money. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, like, get clear on your priorities and your values, and then try to find a match, and you'll have the highest chance of being engaged through that work.
Well, so let's expand on that. So yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree exactly on what you said. You know, being clear on what you want and finding the match. I mean, like everywhere in life.
Right.
But I think that if we look at different ages.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm not 20 anymore. So it's easier for me now with some experience to reflect and be honest about it. But younger generation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that they, I think, struggle with. It's hard for them to know what they want, right?
Yeah,
they still have maybe loans to pay.
Yep.
Now we're also living in this Instagrammable world where we all want money. So, you know, how do they can approach this? Or should approach this?
Certainly when you have less options, I think that it's even more important to get clear on your priorities. I think some problems with that is, like, in our educational systems, we don't teach anyone how to figure out their purpose or priorities. We don't teach leadership or things like that, how to lead oneself. So I think it's a gap in just kind of the way we prepare people for work after they leave home from their parents. And so that's one thing. And then so I say it's more important to be clear on your priorities then. And then I'd say, play the long game. Don't sweat it so much when you're younger. Get out, you're gonna make mistakes. Try something. Did you like it? No, yes. Yeah. And then move on. So if I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self, I would say, Charles, it doesn't matter. Like, go be crazy, do some wild stuff, try things.
Agree.
You can always settle down and focus in your 30s, and the experiences and the learning you're going to get are going to be super valuable. I mean, you could argue I did that by driving submarines around the world in my 20s, but and I did. I saw a lot of cool stuff. But that would be my advice. It's like, don't sweat it. You will make mistakes no matter how good you plan. Stop thinking about it. Just get out there and do it. So that's some of my, I guess, tips. But yeah, I hear you.
Well, yeah, it's just that I recently went to an event and there were a bunch of students. Yeah. And I asked one, what are you studying? She said, finance. I said, why finance? I like money. And I mean, I don't blame her. I said, I like money too. And so, that was the reason. But I hear that I can relate that it's hard for them to know what they want. Like, if I were to think about myself 15 years.
Totally, yeah. I had no idea. I mean, I did electrical engineering in my undergrad, and now I'm in psychology. I mean, So,
what a leap.
I mean, totally different. So
but you said that you work with companies and help them, teams, to become more efficient. So when you come to an organization, what a typical advice or guidance that you give as a consultant to the team to improve the efficiency, to the extent that you can share. I
mean, it's very contextual. But I can give some generalities. I mean, usually when I get called into an organization, someone has spoken the words like, my team is dysfunctional, or we have a culture problem. So it's like, call Charles in. So I show up, and usually the first questions I ask are like, what are you trying to solve, or what problem do you have, and why do you think culture or some team effectiveness coach is going to solve it? Like that's the first thing I want to know.
Okay.
So I think oftentimes people may jump to a conclusion, oh, it's just a culture problem, when I don't know, I'd say maybe even more than half the time I sit and listen, like, I don't think it's a culture problem. Like, I think you have a structure problem, maybe operating model problem. You know,
interesting.
Could be just a leadership problem. You know, something like that. So, so I think those are some of the things that's the first thing I say is like, let's figure out what your problem is, or what your aspiration is, and why do you think someone like me can help. So let's say we get past that, and I'm working with teams. I use an old framework that I learned in grad school, and it's proven right, like, over and over again. But essentially, I look at usually the first problem is the team isn't aligned on their goals. So everyone has like a implicit understanding of what the team goal is.
Okay.
And they're different. So it's like, let's actually get clear on this. What are we trying to do? And then I usually discover that it's usually maybe a third of the time it's actually not even a team. Everyone just has individual goals, and they have no common goal they're trying to work together towards, which is essentially the difference between a group of individuals and a team.
Right.
So first step may be like, let's actually make you a team by giving you a unified goal. And I see this at high levels of organizations too. It's not just in lower levels.
Okay.
So that's one thing to explore goals. Next thing I see often is there's a misunderstanding about what people's roles are on the team. Sometimes there's overlap, which creates fighting, because like, that's my decision. You know, someone's like, no, that's my decision. And then you get kind of the chaos or dysfunction or back channeling, those kind of things. Or there's gaps. Stuff falls through, deadlines get missed. Well, that was your responsibility. You know, like, no, that was your responsibility. And so you see these things, and like, I'm being very simplified. They play out in much more complex ways, just because of the nature of human beings. But that's the second thing, usually roles.
Okay.
Needs to be more clarity around not only the roles, but like, what unique strengths does that individual bring to the table? And how can we leverage this person in a unique way to achieve our interdependent goal? That's number two. The third thing I usually find is around process. This is like your ways of working, governance, decision-making processes. You know, there is just, sometimes there is no process. Sometimes people are operating on different processes, or aren't sure about why are we doing it this way.
I love processes.
And that's probably the third one. And then lastly, it gets into this personality. Sometimes teams just have tough personalities, and you can either look at a personality psychometric, you can look at like social styles, learning styles. There's a psychometric for every day of the year that you can look at for these. But typically what happens is there will be fighting within a team. They think, oh, it's just, well, that's just their personality, that's just their style, when in fact it's almost always one of those first three, and that's what's causing the tension in the team.
Interesting.
So yeah, so that's kind of my basic first look. I start asking questions along those lines, and then often you'll get into like very nuanced and contextual things that need to happen with the team, and I get them behaving differently. It's like, well, we're going to try something different for 30 days and see what happens. Is this better or is it worse? And usually if I get a team that really wants to change, they believe they can change, they're willing to delay gratification a little bit.
Oh,
that's good.
Hard.
That's good material to work with for sustainable behavior change.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
I bet it's very rewarding.
It is. When I love working with clients that genuinely like want to change. That's no matter how messed up it is or how hard of a challenge they're going through, it's the joy of my life to be with them and help them through the change. You know, sometimes when there's clients where maybe the lead brought me in, they don't really want it, you know, those are tough and they're not effective. And I usually figure that out after a while. And it's like, look, you know, I'm not adding any value here. It's time for me to go. So, yeah, I love it. It is very rewarding.
Well, you mentioned earlier employee engagement, and we touched on this.
Yeah.
And I was reading that one of the strongest factors that impact employee engagement is actually managers providing regular feedback to their employees. And that's your coaching, where we as employees can find out, you know, how we're doing, what needs to be improved. And apparently there's a lot of research on that managers are not equipped to do that, and they're not doing a good job on providing feedback.
Yeah.
What are your experience with this, and you know, what do managers or we businesses or people need to do to improve that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm working with a client right now, a very well-known client on this exact problem. The interesting thing about feedback is it's really hard to define. Like what is feedback? So it makes it very difficult to study from like an academic perspective to get like research and literature to kind of guide you in a good direction. If I remember correctly from some of the meta-analysis, so I wrote my master's thesis on feedback.
Okay.
So
good to know.
But I think about it was something almost like 2/3 of feedback it's actually not helpful, and about half of that is actually harmful when it comes to like engaging employees.
Okay.
You know, there's a question. I think Gallup has this question on one of their surveys, but it's like, my manager provides effective feedback.
Yeah.
And I think that's like has like a correlation, like a really strong correlation with engagement. So it moves. And I think you're almost like 10 times more likely to be more engaged if you answer high on that question.
Yes, I read that.
So
Steady.
So I think the challenge is that effective feedback is it depends on the receiver if they find it effective or not.
True, it's
right?
kind of subjective.
Yeah, exactly. So that could come in many, different shapes, styles, things like that. So what I would tell any manager that's working with a team, I would say, get to know your team professionally, personally. Understand what their ambitions are. What skills do they want to develop? What roles do they want in the organization? What roles do they want outside of your organization? And then give them feedback to help develop them to achieve those goals. And if you don't know how to do it, find someone that does and point them in that direction. So I think it's a very nuanced, very personalized thing that people can learn if they want to do it. But it requires truly getting to know the people that work for you.
Wanting to know first, and then
exactly.
Making time for that.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd say it's as simple as that, but it takes time and effort. It's not an easy thing to do. Simple to understand, but hard to put into practice.
And then many managers, I'll speak the other side of my mouth, that I know many managers are also working managers. Yeah. And so, where do you find that time to lead your team and then do your work?
Yeah. Well, which comes back down to the purpose. Yeah. Why am I here? Why am I in this organization? Why am I alive? Is it just to show up and punch a clock? Or do I want to leave a mark in the hearts and minds of people that I work with or spend most of my life with? Because you're at work more than you are at home. So I think, I don't know, I see purpose in everything. And I think getting really sharp on that, just the rest of your life just unfolds from there. So.
Well, speaking about purpose, the other thing that you do, you're involved in the organization that provides support to prisoners, right?
Yeah.
And I watched a little bit of this award-winning documentary, The Work.
Yeah, great documentary.
Can you tell us about the organization and kind of what do you guys do there?
Yeah. So
what's the purpose?
The organization is called Inside Circle, and they hold sessions in California at a prison there. They also open one to the public, and it's called Outside Circle. And anyone can sign up for these. You can Google it, check it out. essentially what we do is like I go and work and as a member in Circle, and we're just there to like process things. And so we're around with ex-convicts, people that are recently released from prison, and essentially we're just sitting in a circle, sharing our stories, talking about where we need help. I share as well. Like I get to do my own work there with those guys and women. And I don't know, it's just it's a beautiful, intimate space, a sacred space where I've watched, you know, healing take place, not only in my own life, but in the life of others. So it's a really, really cool experience. And it's not for the faint of heart. Like there are big emotions that come out. I mean, watch the documentary if you're interested, to kind of understand what you might be getting into. But yeah, there's big emotions sometimes.
So on that note, I mean, you are surrounded by people who, rightfully or wrongfully so, were in prison, right?
Yeah,
so they're tough men and women. And how do you create that sense of psychological safety so they can, you know, among the people who were maybe conditioned to avoid vulnerability? Like, how do you make all these emotions come out?
Well, I think there's kind of, I think one key ingredient is that there are reformed prisoners there that are vulnerable and open, and they're setting an example. And those other prisoners or ex-convicts see that, and they're like, if it's okay for this person who is in prison for 20, 30 years to be vulnerable like this, like I can do it too.
Okay.
So there's some role modeling there.
Interesting.
And then I think the people like me that are there, I think it's just showing up in a non-judgmental way and just holding a container to listen and see, to witness someone, and just being a witness. I think is a part of that process. So I think, you know, and it's very structured. There's a lot of thought, I think, into. I mean, it's very carefully thought, like who like the lead facilitators are.
Okay.
Stuff like that. So it's very structured, very thoughtful. So there's a lot of things that are going on that may not be like super evident on the surface. But by the time you're sitting in Circle, a lot of stage has already been set to have that safety, the psychological safety.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you think that the work that you and the organization inside Circles do help reduce recidivism and maybe make this long-lasting change in the system and in the lives of these people?
Well, I don't have statistics on that, but I mean, just from my own experience, like undeniably, yes. There's undeniable healing, mindset shifts, belief shifts, and also I think, you know, helping people like civilians that show up to participate in some way. I mean, the ex-convicts become people. They're just human beings that sometimes have had horrific past upbringings, and they were born into a system that was just doomed. And you have compassion. You see them as people.
Yep.
And I think if we can change our mindset, especially in the U.S., that these people they're just normal folks, and they made a bad decision, and that led to another bad decision, led to another one. But they're not damned people. They're not bad people that we should just throw away. They can change. So I think sitting in there for people like me or us that would go, you see that and you're like, oh, I should think differently about the prison system probably. So that's my thoughts.
I happened to watch a while back a documentary, I think on Netflix, called the best prisons in the world, or the worst, something, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But one of them is in
the
Chile.
Worst are the best. Yeah.
Well, that's not the point. But one of them is in Greenland.
Okay.
And essentially they made it like a hotel type environment where people stay in their rooms.
Yeah.
They have a common kitchen, so they get together, they cook, they go to jobs, they come back. So the government is trying to integrate them in the system and teach the social skills that often people who lived in or stayed in prison for so many years are lacking, right?
Yeah.
So I think
that sounds spot on to me. I mean, because what we do here is we put them in a cage. They understand the prison system, how to survive there. And then we throw them out in this. Like they can't get a loan. They can't get an apartment.
I gotta go here.
You know?
Yeah.
So what do? They call up their buddies that they ran around with before they went into prison. And guess what their buddies are still doing? They're still doing the same stuff. So like, they fall right back into it. But like, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to sleep on the street? Like, they just, I mean, we make it so hard for ex-felons to be able to do anything in this country. So it's like, what do we expect? You know, is my thinking.
Interesting.
And it's not an easy challenge. There's certainly examples where people have got out and done horrible things to other people too.
Yeah.
So I'm not denying that. But I think if we could think differently and maybe have more compassion on people and see that, I can certainly say that because of the house and the home I was born into, that probably kept me out of prison. I mean, I could have easily been born into another situation.
That's very true.
Where that could easily been a path. So, yeah, I think we just need to flip our mindsets, especially in the U.S. particularly. So
if you were to bring one element of this work to the corporate boardroom, what would it be?
That's a good question. Well, one is like, I know sometimes teams are like, they're like, I bet you didn't expect this, or this is probably too intense for you. And I kind of chuckle. I'm like, this is not intense at all compared to some of the other situations I've been in, just with either prisoner work or veteran work. Stuff like that those are intense situations. Working in the office is not intense. So that's one thing, is that just stay calm. Probably the worst thing that's going to happen in an office building is you may get fired, and then you get in your car and you go home and you have dinner, which is not a super horrible day in the grand scheme of things. So I always keep that in mind.
That's a good perspective.
And for anybody that can go in to the office. I think the other thing, honestly, it may sound cheesy, but just love, have compassion for people. I think committing to yourself that you're going to believe that everyone's doing their best and everyone's trying to soothe their anxiety, at least for me, it enables me to have compassion for those people. So if someone's like really irritated or angry or something like that, it's like, it's not about me. They're dealing with their own stuff, and they're just a human being trying to make their way through this life. And then I can have compassion on them. So I try to bring that with me everywhere I go.
That's a good advice. Something to think about when we are in difficult situations. You clearly helped many people. What are you most proud of as a coach, as a consultant, as a human being? It's okay to be cheesy.
No, I'm just trying to think how to answer that question. Most proud of as a human being. I mean, that's a pretty big question.
Yeah, that's true. We still have, more than half a mile to go.
Okay. I think my biggest accomplishment at this point in my life, after being on the earth for 42 and a half years, has been the realization that I can just be. I don't have to put any expectation on me of doing something. I think a lot of my life I chased, power, status, titles, money. And then now I realize that it just doesn't matter. And I can just show up and be, fully embody the attributes that I seek to attain, like love, compassion, kindness, patience, those kind of things. And I don't need to do anything. And that's taking a big burden off of me. So I don't need to be the CEO of something one day. I don't have to go out and write a book one day if I don't want to. I don't have to do anything that like society puts pressure on us to do as a man, woman, father, business person, whatever. I can just be, and that's okay. And I think me coming to that knowledge has changed the way I approach life and changed the way I wake up every day.
So accepting where you are right now and being okay with that?
Yeah, and there's a fine line of that tension between complacency and acceptance.
Right.
And somehow I feel like I found the middle ground of that. And I don't even know how I did it. It just sort of has happened. But I'm really grateful for it.
So then when you accept where you are, how do you still continue striving towards, maybe goals, but then not beating yourself for, hey, I thought I'll be by my, 40s, I'll be driving Lamborghini, and then here I am on Toyota Corolla.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like, well, who put that desire in you? Is that truly your desire, or is that something that society put in you? And then, I guess I'd say like, I'm still ambitious. I'm still pretty intense, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And so I'd say, if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying your life experience, something's wrong. Like either something's wrong in here, or you're inside of a system that isn't like a good fit for you. So I'd say that's a pause for self-reflection. And you're gonna have bad days. I'm talking like chronically.
Yeah.
Like I am not satisfied. Then that sounds like an examination of your environment, and an inward examination is needed.
Interesting. Well, if you were to give an advice to younger folks who are entering the workforce right now, right, and knowing all the changes that are happening with, AI and constantly changing world, and not knowing what maybe degree to what to study.
Right.
What would it be? What would you say?
Yeah, that's a broad question as well. I'd say try to align with something that not only makes sense to your head, but also you feel your heart move towards that too. Don't abandon one for the other. I think sometimes where young people err is they go all passion, where they don't think about how am I gonna pay rent.
Yes.
And then I see other young people go all head, and like all they wanted to do was just to be an artist, but they became a doctor, So it's like, how can the doctor paint some, and maybe how can the passionate, musician, maybe either work another job to make ends meet, or do something else that's sort of interesting, or how do they make music their thing? But don't just abandon either one. I think I'll try to keep a blend of heart and head, and then start to learn, and you'll start to learn and figure out what works, what doesn't work, what feels better, what doesn't feel better, and you'll figure your way out. But I would say, fundamental to that is like, to any person, you have the tools innate within you to figure it out. And you don't need anyone else to tell you how to figure it out. Learning is great, but like deep down inside, you'll know how to guide your way.
Okay. So then if you have the tools inside of you, if we all have tools inside of you, I gotta ask that, why do we need coaches?
Oh yeah, great question. I think because it's hard for people to figure out what those tools are. Sometimes they've been abandoned for so long. We pick them back up and don't know how to use them.
What a run! Hope you finish strong and inspired. If you like this episode, hit that subscribe button. Until the next run.